This is gonna be a good one. What's going on, y'all? Today we're gonna be talking Last of Us Season 2, with its finale debuting this past weekend. And amidst all the backlash this show is facing, with viewer numbers getting lower and lower, the actors getting called out on performances, and other issues that we're gonna get into, it's safe to say that this season did not go the way that people assumed it was gonna go. Or if you're on the other side of the fence, it went exactly the way you thought it was gonna go. Now, some of you may have noticed that I haven't been posting the weekly breakdowns that I started a while back on the channel. Wait a minute. Yep, it's been about a month, go figure. And there's a reason for that. After episode 2, which I knew was going to be one of the biggest deciding factors of if people kept watching the show, it gave me some deja vu vibes actually to something that also killed off their show as well. Some issues that were presenting itself in the first few episodes became more prevalent, I guess I could say. And being an open-minded viewer, I wanted to try to be as non-biased towards the show, while trying to see the picture that they were trying to paint in the show, as well as see all the narrative changes from the game adaptation. And as I continue to watch, I noticed something that I couldn't put into words until they finally wrapped up the finale. And all I had to say is, this season absolutely sucked. I can't sugarcoat it anymore. The season quickly turned into a chore to get through, and at times I even had to fight with myself to continue watching, even though I knew what was going to happen. But man, I didn't know it was going to turn out this bad. The previews of the season made it seem like such an exhilarating form of content that was going to highlight the best parts of the game and showcase it for the fans of the show. HBO definitely put their millions into this, and even I think they were a little disappointed with it. There were definitely standout moments throughout the show, like every action scene with the infected, and of course the heartbreaking conversation with Joel and Ellie. The season was riddled with mess-ups where the show could have capitalized on what kept players engaged in the story of Ellie and her journey. Now, as for issues with what I'm going to be getting into, I'm going to be going over the pieces that led to this travesty that went on during the season that drew so many people to turn their back on the show, and ultimately talk about where did they go wrong with The Last of Us Season 2. And before we begin, if it's not already obvious, there's going to be spoilers in this video, so do with that what you will. With that being said, let's get into it.
Y'all ready for this?
One of the first issues that I noticed was the lack of depth in the show without Pedro. This issue was a huge one within the launch of the original Last of Us Part 2, where most of the fanbase felt that Ellie didn't get enough development in the first game to be able to carry on the new game. But oddly enough, the journey that Ellie goes on is captivating enough to keep the players interested and engaged, even with the loss of Joel. In this show, you feel the loss of Joel, and you spend the rest of the season feeling that due to no one really being able to take his place, and nothing really happening to take your mind off of it. The first part of the show got you so into the father-daughter vibe that was actually reenacted surprisingly well. With the start of Season 2 and Neil Druckmann and the rest of the group making changes, I fully assumed that they were going to be changing that part of the narrative with Ellie losing her father figure no less than a few hours into the show. This decision back then has arguably went down in history as one of the worst decisions in a story that has ever taken place, and let me tell you something. It didn't work then, and it definitely didn't work now. I've said before that I'm not a Bella Ramsey hater, and I don't feel the need to tear down her casting as Ellie in the show, but whoever is writing the character motives for her portrayal in the show needs to be fired yesterday. With Ellie being next up to fill the role as the main character due to the loss of Joel, the game tries its best to make you sympathize with her even though her path of revenge is all stemmed from a horrible decision that Joel made. That motive keeps you wanting to see her take out everyone who was a part of Joel's execution, but on the other side, you understand the cycle of revenge from Abby's point of view when the game makes you play as her. But in the show, Ellie's motivation comes off as hollow due to Bella's inability to embody Ellie as a character. Ellie in the game is structured as a resilient and self-reliant character in the apocalypse, capable of seeing the end of her journey alongside Dina and later Jesse. Her survival skills are comparable to Joel, and it reflects how much he's taught her over the years in key moments during the game. Her personality and lines come off as believable as a daughter who is grieving the loss of her father figure. Ashley Johnson crushed in conveying the emotion and bringing the character to life. But in the show, you don't get any of that. Bella's portrayal of Ellie paints the character as inexperienced, insufferable, and obnoxious, where her game counterpart is on the quest for revenge against the WLF. This version of Ellie has amounted to nothing more than a teen love story who doesn't really care about the danger she gets her friends into, which was another issue that got bigger as the show went on. The relationship with Dina, while it was drafted up interesting, became the center point of the show for multiple episodes, and strayed away from the Ellie revenge tale that people wanted to see. You would have honestly forgotten that with all the nice family stories, the conversation in the tent, and sudden makeout scenes between the two, that Joel got killed in front of her just a few months prior. There are moments in her dialogue that make her come off as a know-it-all, with a potty mouth uttering the F word literally every other sentence, when the conversation doesn't really warrant it, so it just comes off as awkward and cringy. It also doesn't make it any better than in every interaction with the infected, Ellie gets bit in almost every encounter she has. And I know this is the show's way of harping down on the fact that Ellie's immune, but it really does show that if she wasn't immune, Ellie probably would have died a long time ago. And in every situation where she faces danger, like in the finale, there's this random scene where you see how Ellie's decision making and trying to be justified in the stuff she does goes completely wrong. And she almost gets gutted by Seraphites, but then of course the plot deems that they let her go. Like I said, a random scene, but the show is just constantly berating you with how Ellie just don't belong out here. The best way I could sum her up as a character is that she's a character in a show that knows she's in a show and knows that the plot armor could cut diamonds. She can say whatever she wants to anyone, like the rebellious teenage, I don't need no man, literally, girl that she is. She can go into any situation and not worry about the outcome of it, and that's just her every episode. To which you can see that this girl hasn't been taught anything over the time that she spent in Jackson. She has cringe moments where she's trying to be aggressive and it just comes off as a small case of the ick. And in those moments of her acting, you really wonder what they're trying to do with the character besides piss you off. This of course brings me to the next issue that I was worried about, that a lot of people were going to be curious about. That was the amount of episodes that it was going to take to get through this part of the story, and because of that, the pacing was atrocious. For those that didn't know, the original game is split into 3 parts. You get Ellie's trip to find Abby over the next few days after what happens to Joel. Then it cuts to the player playing as Abby to see what she's been up to over that time as well. Then the third part, you go back to playing as Ellie for the ending. HBO actually had its work cut out for them in trying to tell the first part of the story in the 7 episodes that they did. Due to it only being 7 episodes, a lot of the interesting parts is taken out and only given as Easter eggs in the episodes. It just comes off as rushed and disappointing when they're rushing through the interesting parts and standing still in the parts that you really don't care about. The sheer amount of times that I said to myself while I was watching this, I do not care about anything that Dina and Ellie are talking about, honestly boggles my mind. They keep what they're given pretty much a 1-for-1 shot with the game, like showing what day Ellie is on with day 1 text, as well as keeping the key moments such as the train station and the TV station. But the context inside the episodes does little to expand the lore of the universe and just chooses to focus on Ellie and Dina's love story, with key moments just sprinkled in. The action set pieces like the TV station into the train station were standout moments in the game, but due to the show's hard focus on everything that's not the story, they choose to meander on the uninteresting parts of the narrative, but then rush through the parts that you really want to see, which gives the sense that the show is unfinished by the end. You only get little moments of action at the end of the 45 to 50 minute episodes because, we've got to show Ellie's in love. And that honestly made the show drag in parts where it shouldn't have. And with Ellie already being presented as someone who doesn't know what they're doing in a world where there's danger around every corner, the stakes are there, but the show doesn't choose to use them. The lore already presents itself and had so much potential, especially in this season. You've got the WLF, a military-esque faction determined to maintain its ranks amongst a post-apocalyptic world that enact martial law with a solid rank structure, who are at war with the Seraphites, aka the Scars, a religious cult known for their primitive practices, who are very barbaric and aim to recruit and save others they come into contact with in the name of their religious icon. They communicate by whistling and fight with bows and arrows and sickles and other primitive means, and it was honestly one of the most interesting parts about the game and brought a very different aspect when it came to the new aspects they introduced. And then of course you have the mushroom people who are running around everywhere, so I don't understand how the show failed at handling the narrative when it had plenty to draw from. The show suffers to an extent that the game did when it came out, with the whole controversy about the girl boss motif, that Ellie is not meant to be the central character when Joel already fulfilled that role. And where the game was able to shift that narrative to a positive through exploration of Ellie's mindset, the show ruins that by forcing you to sit through conversations with 2 girls that don't belong out in the world that the show has crafted, and you know they aren't going to make it very far. The weird love triangle drama that the show focuses on really makes you forget that this season is focusing on how Ellie responded to what happened to Joel. Again, I don't understand how you can make this show boring when people are literally on the brink of extinction, but who cares? I got a girlfriend now. Now, I sat through all 7 episodes of this season in preparation of the show twice. Yes, all 7. And I didn't want to be one of those reviewers that just dunk on this show, because I know there's going to be plenty of those on the internet, as you probably can tell. And I had to actually think long and hard about what were some of the positives of the show if someone were to watch it. And even if they watched it, what would stick out to them as something that they liked? And I did come across a few things that I actually really loved out of this sheer mess of a season that this was. The first thing was that most of the actors outside of Ellie actually did a pretty good job bringing that emotional aspect to the scene. I talked about Abby's speech to Joel that was an exclusive to the show, and how much her speech to Joel about her dad brought the impact of how bad that loss was affecting her because of his actions. Dina's speech about her life before Jackson and how she saw revenge brought a different level of mystery about her that you would have never thought because of the fun, loving, and giggly personality we're initially introduced to. It's kind of torn down by her about to shoot Ellie as soon as she thinks she's infected a few minutes later, but that's not really the point. Pedro Pascal not being in most of the season was an injustice that I don't think this show will ever be able able to recover from. Now, I knew long before what happened to Joel and was already mentally prepared for what was to come with his death, but his performance in the 6th episode honestly brought me to tears. His speech to Ellie and the glimpse of his past that we get were two aspects that showed why this show is not gonna last too much longer after this season. The raw emotion that Joel presented in his confession to Ellie was something that just showed that they got rid of Joel way too quickly and are gonna be paying for it in seasons to come. He would definitely be missed in whatever they choose to do with this show and are probably gonna have to rely on flashbacks with his character, just to give a pinch of emotion that this man perfected in that episode, and also is what made it my favorite episode of the entire season, surprisingly enough. Another part that stood out to me that I honestly wasn't expecting was what they did with young Manzino as Jesse. Jesse in the game is basically portrayed the same as the show, mainly a background character that we're told about through small sections and dialogue, and eventually him teaming up with Ellie and Jackson when he saves her. He still ends up being the father of Dina's child, but that's the only significance of his character before his death. Manzino serves as a standout with key moments such as his speech to Ellie before she goes to go after Abby, and eventually when he saves Dina and Ellie from the stalkers. His motivation to stay alive for the well-being of him and Dina's child was strong, and you felt that through how level-headed he was and directly countered Ellie's arrogant and stubborn hard-headedness that we've oh so come to enjoy. As I watched the finale, I became a fan of his portrayal of Jesse, as he was more than just a jobber character, and actually stood for something, even if it was everything Ellie wasn't. In the game, he's way more warm and actually cares about Ellie and Dina just because they're his friends, while in the show, you get a way more realistic portrayal of him who doesn't care about Ellie's revenge and really just wants to look out for his community. And it also had me sincerely hoping that they were going to change his ending within the show, but alas, they did not. Certain standout sequences with the supporting cast just kept reminding me of the potential this season had, and how they squandered it with odd narrative choices. With the supporting cast working with what they had of the material, it's sad that those characters had to take such a back seat within the series and can't truly bring the drama and engagement that the show desperately needed. I'm hoping that some of the talents of the rest of the cast rub off on Bella Ramsey if she's going to be the one who carries the show, because if it's anything like this season, I don't know, I don't think I could do it, man. All in all, I feel like where the showrunners had the opportunity to adapt the source material and right the wrongs of the past with their game, they just chose to do it again. The game was already widely disliked upon release due to the storytelling and the loss of Joel in the beginning, that the better aspects of the game were not even considered by many. And with not being able to expand upon the monumental world they built within the Last of Us series, the season just comes off as a cash grab that relies on gamers to watch it and feel those exact emotions again, while also saying, hey, we're woke, so if you don't like it, there's something wrong with you. Where they could have shined this story, they chose to just follow their same old mistakes, albeit a little bit worse, due to you not being able to stand the main character the show is force feeding you. The ending is set up that we're going to be getting into the Abby segment of the game, and honestly, from the way this part went, I honestly might skip it. As a fan of the games, I really hope they can get their act together to fix this show, and I hope the fans continue to voice their opinions to see if that will help the writers come up with a better narrative than whatever the they're coming up with now. And if we gotta wait 2 years for the next season, for goodness sake, just play the game. I promise you'll have a better time. But what did you guys think of this season of Last of Us? Let me know down in the comments if you were messing with it and what you liked, if anything. And if there was anything you liked about this video, be sure to like the video to help it grow in the algorithm, and subscribe to the channel for more upcoming reviews. As always, y'all take care, and peace.
Holy shit. I'm gonna be a dad. Yeah.
Boy, if you don't get